Tonight, into Egypt and out of Gaza, hundreds of foreign nationals, including Americans, escape across the border. This as an Israeli hospital continues its work.
We're here to make the world a better place.
Volunteers answer care for the victims of war. Plus,
overnight, Ohio could go from being one of the most pro-life states in the country to one of the most pro-abortion states in the country.
The fight over abortion comes to Ohio, and the Fed's decision on another interest rate hike. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A way out for some stuck in Gaza. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Bratter.
And good evening from our Washington News Bureau. I'm John Jessup. Well, Americans among the families and foreign nationals who are now escaping through the Rafah border out of Gaza, a temporary humanitarian crossing into Egypt.
Now, the evacuations come after a major Israeli airstrike targeting a Hamas leader and slamming into a refugee camp, and as Israel expands its ground incursion into Gaza. Ambulances seen carrying injured Palestinians through the Rafah crossing after a deal brokered by Qatar between Egypt, Israel, and Hamas. More aid trucks, too, seen heading into Gaza, carrying food, water, and medicine. The State Department says the U.S. is working to allow around 400 Americans in Gaza to leave.
We expect exits of U.S. citizens and foreign nationals to continue over the next several days. We want to make sure we can get U.S. citizens and their family members out as safely as possible.
Meanwhile, soldiers, tanks, and boats seen in this Israeli Defense Force video are intensifying operations inside Gaza. The IDF says dozens of Hamas targets, including observation posts and anti-tank squads and launchers, vessels, and military outposts, were destroyed. Israeli leaders warning this new phase of the war will be long and difficult. Some 240 people, including Americans, are still being held hostage by Hamas.
Well, as you may recall, the Abraham Accords were designed to broker peace in the region by normalizing relations between Israel and its Arab neighbors.
But the escalating war threatens to test the limits of the historic 2020 agreement. CBN's Matt Galka joins us now with how the Accords could play a role in this latest conflict. Matt?
Well, John and Jenna, there is still optimism that the Accords can lead to long-term stability in the region and potentially expand even as the war escalates. The Abraham Accords celebrated its third anniversary in September. The U.S. brokered treaty involving Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE set a goal for expanding diplomatic relations between Israel and Arab nations. The Biden administration continued talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing the budding relationship at the UN in late September.
I believe that we are at the cusp of an even more dramatic breakthrough, an historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Such a peace will go a long way to ending the Arab-Israeli conflict. It will encourage other Arab states to normalize their relations with Israel. It will enhance the prospects of peace with the Palestinians.
3 weeks later, Hamas attacks on Israel shook the region and the world. Speaking in Saudi Arabia, Jared Kushner defended the importance of the Accords in the wake of the attacks, accusing Hamas of trying to upend the stability the Accords created.
In light of the attack, the Abraham Accords are more important than ever. Israel has to have the security to not be threatened by its neighbors and to be able to protect its citizens. That is absolutely crucial, is non-negotiable, and I do think a lot of the world agrees that that's something that should exist. The second element is that the Palestinian people have to have the opportunity to live a better life. And I think that if you go through the element, it's not just saying let's create a state, it has to be a state that can function and thrive, because if you don't create that, then the people will, again, find ways to blame other people instead of the leadership that's putting it there.
The war with Hamas has delayed normalization efforts with Saudi Arabia, one of the most influential countries in the Arab world. Former Israeli Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked says the prospect for expanded peace with Saudi Arabia remains strong.
We need to understand the reality in the Middle East. I think that currently, as we see, the process was put on hold, but I assume that after the war, we can, renew the process. And I hope that soon we will have a peace agreement with Saudi. It's the interest of the U.S., Saudi, and Israel.
The UAE became the first Arab country to directly condemn Hamas, and one official released a statement this week saying the accords are here to stay, despite the UAE's criticism of certain Israeli military tactics. Jenna?
Matt, Iran has been a consistent destabilizer in the region. What role do they play in the Abraham Accords?
Well, Jenna, we've spoken with some senators who have toured the Middle East in the days during and after the attacks, trying to strengthen and expand the accords in the region. Many have said that the terrorism threat Iran poses could actually be a motivating factor for other countries to join the accords and try to harbor peace there. Guys.
All right, CBN's Matt Galka. Thank you so much, Matt. Well, Josh Block is an adjunct fellow at the Hudson Institute, where he focuses on national security and defense. Josh, welcome to you. So as you just heard Matt Galka say, the UAE says the Abraham Accords are here to stay. Do you agree with that, or are the accords at real risk now with the war in Gaza?
I think, as Matt reported, and we've seen from the officials in Bahrain and the UAE, and even from Saudi Arabia itself, who has not yet formalized its relations with Israel, all of these countries continue to see the benefit of close ties with Israel, of increasing those ties, which do dramatically shift the balance of the Middle East against Iran. And of course, in the question of Saudi Arabia, the prospect of peace with Israel for them comes along with an improved relationship with the United States, including a defense relationship. So that's something that they very much want. And given these attacks, which are, of course, all predicated and financed and being perpetrated by groups trained by and paid for by Iran, something that they very much want, and I think probably have a heightened interest in after these events.
Yeah. To your point, Saudi Arabia has assured the White House it's still interested in pursuing a deal to normalize relations with Israel after the war ends, though. Of course, a lot can happen between now and then, Josh. How do you see it?
Well, I think we need to remember here that it is Iran that is at the center of this terror axis that we're witnessing, whether it's the training and funding of Hamas, the training and funding of Hezbollah or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or the Houthi terrorists in Yemen who've declared war on Israel just this week. All of these red strings of instability head right back to Tehran. And so there's no question that as the war proceeds, not only are we going to have to deal with the bad actors themselves on the front lines, these proxy terrorist armies who act for Tehran itself, but for those who are executing the strategy to isolate the United States and undermine our allies. It's these Middle Eastern countries from Israel and of course all the other members of the Abraham Accords we've mentioned who are the targets of the Muslim Brotherhood, who seeks to install an Islamic caliphate, not just across the Middle East, but across the world. Hamas's goals are no different than ISIS. We've seen their tactics are no different than ISIS. For them, it's just a matter of patience. They're more patient than ISIS was. ISIS wanted that caliphate now, and Hamas is trying to earn it over a longer period of time.
Josh, overall, how much do you think the outcome of this war will affect the Abraham Accords and the peace talks moving forward?
I think it gives a greater motive for the parties who are part of the Abraham Accords today and the future to draw closer together. They do have populations there that they have to manage. They're victims of their own propaganda over many years, which tried to deflect internal problems onto Israel. And so there is still some antipathy there among certain quarters of their populations. And so they have to manage that. Sometimes the public pronouncements we see from them don't line up 100% with their feelings. They hate Hamas. Right. They want to see Israel win this war. They won't say that in those words, but you can bet they're cheering for them. And their interests, the interests of Israel, the interests of these countries, do dramatically align in terms of wanting greater prosperity, greater integration, and a diminishment of the power of extremism at home in their countries and around the region.
All right, Josh Block with the Hudson Institute, thank you so much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
Well, as the war continues, so does opposition to Israel's retaliatory attacks. Protests have been seen on college campuses around the world. many turning anti-Semitic.
That's right, at one university campus in southern Israel. However, a strikingly different scene where classes are on hold as many students activated for reserve duty are on the front lines. CBN's Chuck Holton reports how the all-hands-on-deck war footing filters all the way down to the college level.
Since war began after the Hamas attack and Israel's military pushing miles into Gaza, pro-Palestinian protests have continued on college campuses and cities across the U.S., Europe, and beyond. CBN spoke with Daniel Shamovitz, professor and president of Ben-Gurion University and Hospital in southern Israel. The university postponed classes because most of its students are involved in the fight.
It's so intellectually dishonest, so morally dishonest, without any integrity. In what world of any type of liberal academic atmosphere is that type of behavior considered the proper protest?
More than 500 volunteers showed up here after the attacks to help treat the wounded, some of whom included captured Hamas fighters. And this isn't the first time they've treated Gazans here.
Under normal conditions, there's a daily flow of people needing advanced medical aid out of Gaza into Israel. There's actually an organization dedicated to doing that is founded in the kibbutzes around the Gaza Strip. The irony is many of the hostages who were kidnapped to Gaza were the exact same people who on a daily basis were bringing children with cancer needing eye surgery to hospitals throughout Israel.
This is the basement of the administration building here at the hospital, and right now it's being used as an elementary school and kindergarten for 75 kids from the surrounding area who have been forcibly displaced by this war, and they've also been out of school for the last 3 weeks, but now they're back, and the reason that they're doing their school here in the basement is because it's also the bomb shelter.
So we have close to 100 elementary school children who some of their friends, a large number of their friends, have been killed, massacred, who they're all post-traumatic. The things that they witnessed, we haven't seen since the Holocaust, since World War II.
Through it all, the hospital has continued its life-saving work, providing care for all in need, a ray of light despite the protests and darkness.
We're here to make the world a better place, and our hospitals are some of the best in Israel. And if someone needs life-saving surgery, it doesn't matter if they're Muslim, Jew, or Christian, they should get the services that they need.
From southern Israel, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Well, nearly a month into the Israel-Hamas war and at an increasingly critical time, the United States now has a new ambassador to Israel, former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew. By a vote of 53 to 43, the Senate on Tuesday confirmed his nomination, a position vacant since July. Some Republicans, though, voted against Lew over his role in the Obama administration's 2015 Iran nuclear deal.
With Election Day less than a week away, the battle over life is in full swing in Ohio. Coming up, a measure that could enshrine abortion access into the state's constitution. Welcome back. Less than 1 week until some Americans head to the polls for off-year elections. In Ohio, voters could choose to amend the state's constitution to guarantee access to abortions.
Activists on both sides are spending millions on political ads to win over the Buckeye State. And as CBN's Brody Carter reports, voters' decisions in Ohio could have far-reaching implications for the country.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, issue 1 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, issue 1 has got to go.
Ongoing abortion rallies echo outside the State House ahead of November 7th's vote on Issue 1.
We do not want to have the most radical abortion policy in the union.
The measure, if passed, would change the state's constitution and guarantee the right to an abortion.
Overnight, Ohio could go from being one of the most pro-life states in the country to one of the most pro-abortion states in the country.
Jeannie Mancini, president of March for Life, believes the amendment will also diminish health standards for women.
Let's be clear, we're talking about painful late-term abortions.
Protecting Women Ohio, a pro-life coalition raising more than $16 million to warn the public that Issue 1 would also remove parental rights if their child seeks an abortion or even a sex change operation. Several legal experts and ACLU Ohio maintain those claims are false.
The amendment provides the right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions. It's literally limited to that. Sexual identity is not reproduction.
The abortion movement and Planned Parenthood were started by a racist.
Protect Women Ohio also charges abortion is historically racist, disproportionately targeting women of color.
Black babies in Ohio are 5 times more likely to be aborted than white babies.
More than 100 Black faith and community leaders are asking voters in an open letter to stand against the measure. Statistics from Ohio's health department show abortions of Black women made up 48% of the state's total, while only 13% of the state's population is Black.
Black folk, we are targeted for extinction. I believe that we have the right to exist.
Meanwhile, supporters of Issue 1 raised more than $10 million with top donors, including the 1630 Fund, the American Civil Liberties Union, and Planned Parenthood Action Fund.
The left has money on their side, they have the media on their side, but we have science, we have the truth that it is a preborn child in the womb, and we also have God. Our state motto here in our great state is, with God, all things are possible.
As individual states like Ohio are now deciding abortion rights, Senator J.D. Vance stands behind a national bill that would ban abortions after 15 weeks.
Senator Graham has proposed a pain-capable, sort of a late-term abortion ban at the federal level. I think that's the basic right approach. Let the federal government do that, and then let the states figure it out from there.
Many analysts are using Ohio as a strong gauge of what's to come next year when campaigns seek to amend constitutions to strengthen abortion rights in states like New York and Maryland. Brody Carter, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Brody. Michael Gonadakis is the president of Ohio Right to Life, and he's here with us now. Michael, welcome. So what's at stake with Ohio's ballot measure issue 1?
Thank you for having me. No longer is this a debate about being pro-life or pro-choice. This is a battle for the heart and soul of our state, because currently abortion is legal in the state of Ohio, but it's not enough for Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. Abortion is legal up to 20 weeks in the state of Ohio presently, but they want it to go all the way through 9 months, and that's how dangerous this amendment is. It would put late-term abortion in our state constitution, number one, and number two, it would get rid of all of our parental consent, our parental rights, our parental notification, amongst the other countless laws we have in the state of Ohio. That's how radical this is.
Yeah, I was reading issue number 1 would flip the state from being one of the most pro-life states to one of the most easily abortion access states. I wanted to ask Michael, so why the confusion over whether the language includes parental notification or for sex operation, as we just heard in Brody Carter's reporting?
You know, the language is crystal clear as written by the ACLU. It says the state shall not make a law that directly or indirectly interferes with an individual. They didn't say adult, they said individual. That would include a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, an individual's right to reproductive health care. It's crystal clear. Even pro-choice women are saying, hey, this is a bridge too far. I may be pro-choice, but I'm voting no on issue 1. It's crystal clear. What Planned Parenthood's doing is spending tens of millions of dollars to try to confuse Ohioans in their 30-second ad, saying that's not the case. But that's how dangerous this amendment is. When you put something in our state constitution, you can't go back and just change it by asking a legislator or the governor to make an amendment. It's there for life. And that's why we all have to come together, both Democrat, Republicans, pro-life and pro-choicers, and vote no, because it's so dangerous it will be permanently put in our state constitution.
Michael, Democrats really see Ohio as a test case for abortion protections in other red states after pro-abortion measures took hold in Kansas, Michigan, post-Roe. How do you feel about the outcome of Ohio come Election Day?
Yeah, look, this race is super close. We're a Midwest state with Midwest values, and this is a bridge too far, as I said earlier, for even pro-choice families. My neighbors, I have neighbors that are pro-choice, and they're voting no. We're cautiously optimistic. We're going to work hard between now and next Tuesday, when the polls close at 7 p.m., of getting this message out that whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, a no vote is the right thing to do on issue 1.
Michael, just a few seconds left. GOP White House hopefuls are across the board when it comes to pro-life protections, like you said, instituting a federal ban. Why don't we see more consistency there? And if issue 1 does pass, how much does it potentially offset the pro-life victory of the overturning of Roe?
Yeah, look, you know, this is an individual state-by-state battle. So what happens in Michigan last year is different than in Ohio. We're different. We elect different individuals. Our governor's devoutly pro-life here in Ohio. So what this is, all the eyes on the nation are on Ohio. They only chose one state to come and try to attack, and that was Ohio. So if, God forbid, they're successful, it's going to open the doors to a lot of other states. But we're going to win on Tuesday, November 7th, and with a no vote on issue 1.
We'll be watching Michael Gonadakis with Ohio Right to Life. Keep us posted. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Inflation in America, the latest interest rate decision from the Federal Reserve, right after this.
The Federal Reserve's fight against persistent inflation is on pause. Fed Chair Jerome Powell announcing today the central bank is leaving interest rates unchanged for now.
Given how far we have come, along with the uncertainties and risks we face, the committee is proceeding carefully. The process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go.
The Fed voting unanimously to hold rates steady for the second straight month as it continues to track inflation rates and an uncertain economy. U.S. interest rates currently sit at the highest level in 23 years, in the range of 5.25% to 5.5%.
Well, even with falling inflation and an overall economic outlook that's positive rather, a majority of Americans are still worried about the economy. According to a recent News Nation Decision Desk HQ poll, 62% say they're very concerned about inflation. 54% say it's a bigger problem facing the country than even crime or immigration. And about 44% say they are worse off financially than they were this time last year.
The gift of family, still ahead on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a birthday gift one Florida teen will never forget.
That's right, Jenna. A forever family. Just hours before turning 18, aging out of the adoption system, Roman Nehemiah got the news he had longed for. He was finally being adopted out of foster care. Roman officially became part of the family that had been fostering him, immediately inheriting 6 other adopted siblings. He says they're relieved it's now official.
He needed to know people believe in him. And he was wanted and chosen. That's a big deal.
What an important message. Roman says he thanks God for being adopted into his new family, and you can just see the joy and appreciation there. Just acceptance, I think, is...
Oh, I love this story. It's beautiful as we start off November, the month of Thanksgiving, and just a beautiful story.
A lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.